So, Michael Bohan, welcome to the Disenfranchised. How are you doing today?
Yeah, really well, thanks. Really well.
Good to hear. And it was great to finally meet with you on Friday last week at the International Franchise Show. How did you find it all?
Yeah, it was really great. If I'm honest with you, it was just fantastic seeing everybody back out again. It was nice to actually get face to face with people again. Uh, didn't get anything like around that standards around the show as much as I wanted to. Constantly being pulled from pillar to post by people that you've not seen for so long and having a catch up. So it was brilliant for getting back to see everybody again.
Yeah, it's great for me too. And it was just nice to see that people have got legs, because we're all so used to this world of Zoom, right? And there's something about face to face where you just start to get to know people a bit better, don't you, in a different way than you can online. So yeah, it was really good. But speaking about getting to know people a bit better, I think that's a good sort of segue into asking my first question to you to understand a bit more about you, and that is to find out what was your first job in your career.
My first job. Are we including paper rounds?
Whatever you want to, mate. Whatever you want to consider as your first job.
Well, I'd say my first job was my paper round when I was about 12, 13. Couldn't imagine sending your 12, 13-year-old out now, would you, doing a paper round?
Yeah.
But yeah, no. And then I was doing, no, joking aside, I'd say I had a job when I was 13, working in town for a burger bar. Um,
Okay.
and my first role was to just be the Saturday delivery boy. So I'd go down to town and then they'd have their big orders in and I'd run over to like Siemens and places like that, and deliver them all bacon sandwiches in the morning. So I did that for a good 2 or 3 years every Saturday. Earned myself enough money to make sure my BMX was up to scratch.
Yeah. I was going to say, what was that money getting you? What was the thing that was driving you to do that work? Because starting at
My two, my
13.
£2 20 an hour. Um, yeah, exactly. It was. Honestly, I used to enjoy having money. I used to enjoy being able to buy myself stuff, and I literally spent a lot of it on my BMX, and I used to love my bike and stuff like that. So I bought myself new mag wheels, and I extended the brakes, and you name it, I spent it on it. Um, and yeah, that's what I spent it all as a kid for, really. And then of course going to the cinema and hanging out with your mates and like new football boots, and mum would only spend 25 quid on a pair of football boots, so if I wanted better ones I had to make more up, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's the big thing for me. I think when I started working when I was younger was seeing the first £50 come towards me, and I was like, I can buy a pair of trainers for this. Wow. Like every week I can buy a pair of trainers. This is insane. And
Yeah,
yeah, it never sort of turned into what I spent all my money on in the end. But I think it's
no,
interesting,
absolutely.
isn't it? To see what motivates you when you're younger. Like, are you motivated now by buying, parts of BMXs, or, what's driving you to work today?
I wouldn't say it's definitely BMXs, but I do enjoy bits and pieces. It's like nice to have a nice car. It's nice to have a nice house and all that kind of stuff. But it's definitely not the be all and end all. I think if I've learned an awful lot, it's about being happy in what you do, enjoying what you do, and that definitely makes a big difference. When you're happy making money, it's a lot better than just making money.
Yeah, sure. And you clearly weren't fully enjoying the delivery experience back then. Otherwise, you'd still be doing it now. So, talk me through how your kind of career moved on from there.
From there, what did I do after that? I worked there up until I was about 17. I learned how to flip burgers and to service customers and all that kind of stuff while I was there. So it was a fantastic grounding, to be able to link, like, personally have a chat with people over the counter and get to know people and all that kind of stuff. And then from there, I actually was an estate agent.
Okay.
But this was in Lincoln. My first estate agency job was in Ware in Hertfordshire. So it was, my dad lived down in Stevenage, so it was an opportunity. My mum was going around doing MVQ assessing for estate agents at the time, and she said, "Oh, I've potentially got a position for you." And I was like, "Right, what is it?" She was like, "Oh, it's being an estate agent." Right, okay, yeah, sounds all right. So interestingly, the interview for the job was on the same day that I had my driving test. So if I hadn't have passed my test in the morning, I wouldn't have been able to drive down and go for the job interview.
Oh
So I
man.
went to my driving test at 8 o'clock in the morning, passed that, and then set off at 2 o'clock down the A1 to go and have a job interview.
That's pressure on your driving test though, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose. But I was confident. I was confident I was going to pass my driving test. It was something that I always wanted to do. Like, I think living in, like I said, in Lincolnshire, the bus connections and everything are not brilliant. So getting around, you need a car. It's not like being in London. You definitely need a car. So it's yeah, that was one of the things I did. And then I remember it was well, quite. It was like my stepdad came with me, and I drove and he was with me. And I remember when everything finished, and at the end of the day, and my mum was down there and we met up, and she was like, should we go to some dinner? I was like, yeah, let's go to some dinner. And then after dinner, I just crashed. That was it. I crashed in the back of the car, and by the time we got home, by the time I remember, we were back home.
Busy day, right?
It was a busy day, yeah. And I got the job, so that was good.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you get the job? And well, I'm guessing you did. Well, you've said that now, but did you enjoy that role? Was that something you enjoyed doing? Because I think
Yeah,
estate agency's got quite a bad rep in general, hasn't it? But I think also it's kind of helping people change their lives. It's quite a big moment in their lives, isn't it? So there's a lot of pressure in that role as well. So yeah, did you enjoy kind of being in that environment and under that sort of pressure?
yeah, absolutely. I love being an estate agent. It was good fun. It was enjoyable. The only reason I left it was because I wanted to come back to Lincolnshire, wanted to be back with my mates. So I made some friends there. I've still got some great friends down there. But I wanted to come back, and the reason I came back was that Mum she was working for Remax at the time, bringing Remax into the UK. It's a massive franchise from America, and I wanted to do that. But that was a self-employed role and all that. So it's been a self-employed estate agent in a completely different model in the UK, and being self-employed and 21 years old, it meant I could stay in bed. It meant I could go out, and in the end, I realised that I wasn't very good at being self-employed at that age, because I didn't have the motivation to actually crack on. And yeah, that definitely was a massive learning curve.
Right. So sorry. Your mum was bringing a brand called Remax into the UK.
She was working for a brand called Remax, who were just about to franchise into the UK, and she found a franchisee in Lincoln who was buying into it and got it all set up. And then, as part of the model, you're a self-employed, like one man in a band person who goes around and does it. Now, when I could be bothered, I was all right at it, but it was a case of I wasn't motivated enough. I wasn't. It just wasn't. It wasn't right for me at the time. Even though I felt like I was, I can look back on it now and say it wasn't.
Yeah. Okay. So is that motivation piece then, you think, at that point in time that wasn't quite right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the fact that I didn't have to get out of bed, I didn't have to go to work, I didn't have to, all these things that you felt like last week when you said, like, okay, now what do I do? It was a bit like that when I was only like in my early 20s, and it was interesting because as much as I enjoyed what I did, it definitely wasn't the main thing of what I was after. It was about going out with my mates and enjoying my time and enjoying all that kind of stuff more than that. So wrong place, wrong time. Could it have worked? Could it have worked now? Yeah, probably. I'd be a hell of a lot better at it now, if I'm honest. But not back then.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? I think there's some people out there that from a young age have have got that motivation and drive, and they've got the right people around them to support them to create success. But it's not everyone. I know I certainly didn't. I'm probably completely the opposite end of being motivated to make things work back then. But yeah, it's a learning curve, and I guess at least you kind of understood, in your later career, the challenges you might face being self-employed. So did you go back
Yeah,
into
absolutely.
employment at that point then?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I started working for a company, a family-based company, selling video players, TVs, hi-fi systems, and all that kind of stuff. Now, I'm massive fan of music, so I was buzzing when I was selling Bose systems at like 3.5 grand. It was fantastic.
Yeah, it's cool. And so talk me through a little bit more your career, sort of getting to the point where you're at now, and how you kind of progress, because I know you're self-employed now and in the franchising industry, but it'd be interesting to see how you got from that point where you are working for
Depends how
somebody
long you've
else
got.
to now. Yeah,
Um,
well, give us the shorter version then.
I at that point, I was at a point where I wasn't sure what I was doing. I had an awful lot going on. I was at a proper low. I was getting divorced. My daughter was only like 1 year old. Like everything was going a bit pants. So I decided to go back to university and study sport. Being a massive football fan, I've always wanted to coach. I always had a plan. Always thought about what I wanted to do. Getting into an academy and all that kind of stuff. Coaching football. So I went to university. Didn't actually quite finish it because that was boring. It was too academic for me. Did the first year, and then halfway through the second year, I went to America for 6 months and coached football in America, which was an amazing experience. Once I came back from that, I then had this aim of I wanted to do football coaching. Didn't really look into it properly because actually you don't get paid a lot of money when you're just doing coaching. So I had to have something else that supported it along the side of it. And I remember I was working at Curry's Mastercare, which is now Know-How in Newark, from 1 a.m. until 7 a.m. Then I was getting up. Then I was going to bed for 3 hours. Then I was going into a school to do some teaching. And then I was doing dominoes in the evening up until about 9 o'clock. And then I was going to bed, and it was like this horrible thing because of what I wanted to do. And then I realized that wasn't really capable, and I was bitting and bobbing, and I was here, there, and everywhere for a long time, doing different jobs and just not really having a settle. And then all of a sudden, an opportunity came up, working for Driver Hire, actually, in Lincoln as a recruitment consultant. And that got me back on the straight and narrow a little bit. I was still doing some football coaching. I was coaching for Boston United. But I had a bit more of a purpose. I was living a bit more local and so on and so on. And that was my first real venture into and this is at the age of 28. So when I say I bit in a bobby for 10 years, I really did. And it was just a case of just bringing in money and just not really knowing really what I wanted to do. And then I was doing Drive Hire and I was enjoying that and I was getting on with it. And then then again, my mum was working for she'd started her own consultancy company. And I was like, that sounds pretty cool. That sounds like I could get involved with that. Want something that I could really get my teeth into. So I left the job and went and worked for mum. And it was, that was an eye-opener, because leaving a salary of a decent level to then literally earning jack was hard work. And having to build that all back up again. And at that time, franchise resales was one of Julie's main clients, and that's how I got involved with that. So I got involved with Derek and Derek Simpson, who started the company, and I just got involved with that. And then yeah, it just I just fell in love with it. And to have so many different jobs, when I say different jobs, Ed, I mean, I was a bin man. I was a bin man for 3 or 4 days on this work thing, and I was working in factories, and you name it. I just did anything so I could bring some money in.
Yeah.
And then when I got got into franchise retails, and I realised that actually I can make a real big difference to this with everything I've learned And everything I've took from my sporting because I did some sports qualifications. I'm now level 3 UEFA B qualified in football coaching. So, and there's an awful lot in sport. I'm sure people who are listening who've got sports qualifications will see that there's an awful lot in sports qualifications and training and stuff like that you can bring into business. There really is an awful lot of stuff that cross over. And with what I'd learned from there and all these other bits and pieces, I came into working with Julie doing what we were doing. And then I was involved in franchise resales. And I just loved it. So then I started to get more and more involved, and I was getting more involved in the marketing and more involved in you name it. I was trying to get involved with it. And I'm one of them people where I like to be able to do everything. So I learned how to build the website. I learned how to, go on training courses. I did sales courses. If I needed to be able to build a CRM, I learned how to build the CRM. It wasn't a case of I just paid out for it all the time. I learned so much myself. But then you can only learn to a certain point. So then you have to bring in the experts to do the rest. But yeah, and that's where I am now. And I'm just at that point now where it's just been for the last 10 years. It's nearly my 10-year anniversary. I've nearly been at FR for 10 years.
Yeah, wow. So are you there as an employee now with franchise resales, or?
What, as now?
Yeah.
No, I'm now the main managing director. So I'm the main director of the company. Julie was up until only a couple of months ago, but we've got some other little ventures that she's on the board with now, and I just wanted to completely focus on resales. So I've just took myself out of everything else. So I'm not spreading myself too thin anymore. I'm just focusing on exactly where we are. Especially coming out of the last 2 years, it has been dreadful.
Yeah, I can imagine. But it's interesting how you kind of bounced around, like you say, for a while, and wasn't quite clear on what you wanted to do. And I feel that pain. I've experienced that myself as well. And I think a lot of people out there, are in the same boat, right? There's nobody sort of showing them this is the route to make you happy or successful, whatever that looks like. So, what was the main thing? What would you kind of narrow it down to saying that this helped me to realize what I wanted to do long term? Was there kind of one moment, or is there one aspect of what you're doing now that you went, okay, that's the thing that helped me to decide?
I think if I'm being completely honest, the only time I've ever really felt at home and doing something that I love, enjoy, is with this brand. There's no doubt about it. With franchise resales, ever since I got involved with Derek, and he showed me the ropes, and I always call him my Obi-Wan Kenobi. He literally showed me everything about resales, like all the negotiation, you name it, everything about. And then I've learned everything as well on the way. But I think the biggest thing is that I've got a purpose. You've got a purpose, like you can help people. There aren't many people out there, and I'm trying not to be like too what's the word I'm after? Modest. I'm trying not to be too modest on it, but there's not loads and loads of people out there that really, really understand franchise resales. And it is a different model to just a business brokerage sale, like a general business sale. So I feel like I've got something to give, and I feel like if somebody wants a question answering, I'm open enough to answer that question for them, and I've got enough knowledge and experience to be able to do that. So now I feel like I have a place. And it's took a long time to get there.
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? But I'm glad you've managed to find that home for you. And I think similar to me, you kind of, it sounds like you like to help, but you want to learn how to help everybody, right? So I've done exactly the same thing as you. I've learned to build websites, how to create this podcast, and all these various different things because I enjoyed that. But it's all that knowledge now that I've gained is actually what making me want to help more, right? And I think it's a really nice place to be. So tell me a little bit more about franchise resales then. So I think that the name of the company pretty much says it all, but what's your kind of day-to-day looking like at the moment?
Franchise resales we're the only dedicated franchise resales broker in the UK. So that we're the only broker that actually just deals with franchise resales. There are a lot of other people that do it, that dabble in it, that do it very successfully, but they also do other things, like they'll do cold start recruitment or marketing or whatever else they want to do as well. Whereas we just focus on the nitty-gritty of franchise resales. Day to day at the moment is people are inquiring about selling, so I'm doing an awful lot of valuing or market appraising businesses, making sure that we've got the price right to go onto market, and then we're getting a few leads in. It's pretty quiet as we speak, but we are getting leads in for people to sell. So just to give you an idea, my aim for the next 6 months is to get our stock up to about 70-75 businesses, and to sell probably 20-25% of that within the next 6 months as well. So it's been very much focused on rebuilding after such a, like I said, a horrific 2 years. I'm sure everybody's had a horrific 2 years in certain sectors and everything, but business sales sector has been massively affected because, of course, nobody has wanted to. The banks didn't lend for a while. Nobody wants to put their money somewhere at the moment where they can't be guaranteed anything at the minute. It's we've just come out of Brexit, which was hard enough. Then we've gone into a pandemic. Now you've got the war in Ukraine. You know, there's prices of gas at the moment, house prices, everything is just astronomical. And it's just, hopefully we're going to start settling down and seeing a good year. But I've got some good feelings, and I must admit, Friday, seeing all that positivity and all the people milling around and like people being serious about actually approaching stuff and changing their careers, I think really, like, it was like, you know what, we're back. We're getting back now. It's just a case now of keep doing what you're good at, and you will start getting some great results. And I'm already seeing that for the last 2 or 3 months, things are definitely starting to pick back up.
Yeah, that's interesting. And do you feel like there's more people looking to sell than buy from the sounds of things at the moment, although the tide's turning? But do you think that means there's more kind of great opportunities out there for people to buy into an established business that is looking to sell? There's less competition to buy the best one for them, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yes and no. I think there's a couple of things with resale is always going to be a little bit more money, because of course it's got an income from day one, so you're going to have more money. So the great thing about it is it's a little bit more risk-free because you've already got an income coming in, but you've still got to take that jump. I think there are more opportunities coming to the market. However, the last 2 years have affected businesses so much that people that were thinking about retiring this year are now probably putting it back a couple of years, because of course the businesses aren't necessarily worth what they could be. Now, we try not to take into account the COVID year into valuations, but you've got to look at the realism of it. The way I always look at it is, what's your pre-figures for COVID? And if you've now bounced back to where you want to be or more, we can then discount that year. If you haven't, then unfortunately you've got to take that year into account and look at how we can move it forward. But that's one thing I can do with people, is I can help people understand what they need to do and how they need to make their accounts basically work so that they get a better price at the end.
Yeah. Okay. So what's the typical kind of franchisee that's looking to sell then? I mean, you mentioned retirement there. Is that the typical case, or is it a case that they've built their business up to a certain amount or a certain revenue, and they now want to kind of cash in to then invest in another business? What's your kind of typical franchisee that's selling?
I think that it's interesting. Resales for a long time, and still now, has got a little bit of a stigma about it, that it's failing. It's a failing business, and that's why they're selling it on. And I think that's now starting to change. People are starting to realise now that that's not just the case. An average franchisee in the UK is between 7 and 8 years. So they'll do their first 5 years and then they'll renew, and then they'll think about selling between, I would say, between 7 and 9 years, if I'm honest. So yeah, people are definitely coming into franchising younger now, so they've got more time on their hands. They're looking for this short, sharp journey where they can come in, flip the business, get more money for it, and sell it on. But then, of course, you've also got the other side of it, where people have had them for 20 years, 15, 20 years, and they're looking to retire because they've earned good money out of it and they want to move on. There are always going to be the odd one where it's not quite making the money, or it's not quite doing what it needs to do. So just because if a business is priced low, it's priced low normally for a reason. So it's not a case of it's priced low because they want you to get a bloody brilliant deal. They're pricing it low because that's what it's worth at the end of the day.
Yeah, I guess nobody wants to kind of sell at the lowest possible rate, or not many people do anyway. They're going to want to sell based on the value of what their business has been built up, and that's something you were saying there is interesting to me, because I'm now going, self-employed and starting my own business, and you do a lot of research beforehand to try and kind of make sure you get off to the best start, right? And one book I read was How to Make $1 Million Before Lunch. I haven't done that just yet, but I read it to try and understand.
You got 34 minutes.
Yeah. Well, have you got £1 million? No. But basically, one of the things that really stuck out to me was to plan your exit strategy before you've even built the business. And at first, the concept was really quite alien to me, because I was like, why on earth would I think about, finishing something I haven't even started yet? But as I read on, I learned that it is actually really important. And I guess this is something you know quite well. So I'll let you kind of explain why that's important rather than me, if that's all right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's all down to direction. That's what it's about. If you haven't got a plan, then you don't know where you're going. So it's regarding an exit plan. Your exit plan can be whatever you want it to be. There's no set time. An ideal exit plan, if you're thinking about selling a business, would be 3 years. So you're giving yourself 3 years to make sure your accounts are up to scratch, you've shown your bottom line profits and all that kind of stuff. But that doesn't mean then that you have to sell in 3 years. Like if something changes and you want to extend that exit plan, then extend it. But if you don't have a plan, you won't know where you're going to get to. From a franchisor's point of view, an exit plan is great, because what I speak to them about is saying, look, when you're first interviewing franchisees to come on board, ask them what their exit strategy is. Some of them think I'm being silly, but a lot of them are saying, no, I actually do. Because as a franchisor, you know where that person wants to be. So you know how you're going to get them there. So if they want to make £1 million, for instance, how can you help them get there and make £1 million? You've seen it in your network before. You've seen other people do it. So you've got a fantastic map to do that anyway. So you just need to show them exactly what they need to do and what steps to put in place. So by year 3, if it's a vehicle-based business, you need to have 2 or 3 vehicles on the road. If you haven't got them on the road, you're not going to hit your target, because you're not going to hit your turnover targets, which means you're not going to hit your profit targets, and so on and so on. So it's your exit plan is really an idea of what you're thinking about achieving out of your business before you've moved it on.
And do you think that's typically revenue based, or is it impact? What's the typical kind of goal that people want to get to?
I would say that it's completely dependent on what you're looking for yourself. However, as a business sales agent, it is definitely more on revenue. So people are having an idea of, I want my business to sell for £500,000, or I want my business to sell for £1 million. Right, okay. Well, if you want it to sell for £1 million, that means you've potentially got to be making £3 or £4 million,
Yeah.
and so on and so on. I'm not going to go into the exact semantics of what it is.
No, but I think that it makes sense, actually. The revenue is probably the most important thing when somebody's looking at their exit strategy, because that money then allows them to do whatever that next thing is, whether it's buy a bigger house, buy a new business, go on 20 holidays
Yeah.
a year, support their family, whatever it may be. That revenue is the profit they make, maybe, is what allows them to then go on and do those other things. So I like the idea of doing that before you've even kind of looked at a franchise brand or even built a business, is to sit down and go, why am I doing this? What do I want to get out of it? What revenue do I need, or what money do I need to achieve to do that? And then set out your time plan, 3, 5,
Yeah.
10 years, whatever that may be. And take things from there. It makes it a clearer picture, doesn't it, to follow, rather than just, oh, this looks quite a nice product or a nice business, I'm going to join and see what happens.
No, absolutely. And I think your exit plan's built on your business plan, and that's built on everything else. So you've got to have it all working together. Your exit plan, your business plan should be hand in hand. There's no doubt about it. The business plan gives you what you want to do with your business. Your exit plan is the other side of that, but they should be working together on that route. There's no doubt about that.
So from just your experience of working with these franchise brands and helping people to sell their franchise, their business that they've built up, is there kind of a typical kind of return that you're seeing from the initial investment they make to when they sell? Is it kind of, are they doubling their money over that period of time, or what? Is there any kind of comparisons so that somebody looking into buying into the franchising world, they can expect 3x return or whatever it is? Might be a difficult question to answer, but yeah.
No, you put me on the spot there. No, not really. I'm not going to say that, yes, you're definitely going to double your money, you're going to triple your money. It's all down to how you plan, how you run your business, how you plan your business, how you strategize, making sure that your costs are not outlaying your incomings, all these kind of things. And then at the end of the day, what we do is we'll take a multiple of the Ebitda. So Ebitda is earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, amortization. So it's the adjusted profits of the business. So adding back in all of your personal expenditures, if there are any, onto the bottom line, because of course an incoming buyer is not going to be taking them on board. So if you've got your kids in private school and you run that through the business, people do, don't worry. If you've got your boat in on the business, or your costs and repairs, or your rental houses, all these kind of things, they need to be brought away from the cost line so that it shows a better profit margin.
Yeah, sure. So just thinking about the buyers of these resales, the franchises, what's the pros and cons for somebody buying into an established business like this?
The pros are that you've got yourself something from day one which is already running. It's a proven model as a franchise, but also a proven business in the area. So you've got a good amount of goodwill build up in that area. You've got a cash flow. You're probably going to have a team in place, and that is one thing I will say, is you will learn more from your team than you will from anybody else. So when that team is in place already and they're doing the day-to-day, you'll learn far quicker and get up to speed quicker, because you've got people that are already doing it on the day-to-day. Don't get me wrong, your franchisor training and everything like that is absolutely key. And I think anybody needs to have franchisor training as well on exactly what the brand is and what their processes are, because there's always going to be certain things where it changes, where what somebody's doing on the coalface is a little bit different to what the franchisor's potentially been teaching. So they're looking at making sure that you can see that, oh, well, why are they doing it? Well, this is what I've been told at head office. Well, why are you doing it that way? Oh, this is the reason why. Oh, right, okay, well, maybe we should look at doing it this way then, because this is the new way they're doing it, and stuff like that. So it gives you that healthy start from the beginning. Now, of course, the downside to it is that it's going to cost you more money. So, but the majority of franchises out there, the ones that the banks are working with, if you put down a 30% deposit, they'll lend you 70% on the business. So it means then that you can afford this business from day one. Something I always say to people is, on average, a business makes between anything between 20 and 40% profit. Okay, a decent standing business. So if you look at a business that's making 100 that's on the market 100 grand a year, then that means that business is making between 20 and 40% profit. So you're going to earn between 20 and 40 grand. If it's on at 300,000 a year, you're going to be making about anything between 80 to 120,000 a year. And that's where you can look at stuff from the gauge, from just looking at things like fag packet maths kind of thing. There's always more to it, of course there are, but it's a good way of understanding. If you've got 100, if you're earning 100 grand a year as a salary, don't buy a business that's on the market at 100 grand, because that is not going to get you your 100 grand salary. And I think that's something that there's a massive thing out there, and we get it all the time. Oh, I need to earn 100,000. Then why are you looking at a business that's only on 120 grand? You know, if you want to earn 100,000, you need to be looking at a business that's doing 300, 350,000, that's on the market at 300, 350,000, showing the profit margins of what you're looking for. Otherwise, you're not going to be replicating your salary.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? You've kind of, obviously, I think people are aware of costs, you know, when running a business, but yeah, you've got to completely change your mindset away from that salary, you know, because that's just the end result, isn't it? You've got to do a lot more business to generate that end result. So difficult shift in mindset for people, I guess. But is there a way that those people can spot a good business beyond the kind of financials in terms of, you know, the profit margin? Is there another way they should be looking at a franchise or a business and saying, okay, actually there's some potential for growth here, or actually there's some risks here? What other ways can they spot a good business?
Absolutely. I think too many people look at a set of accounts and judge the business based on a set of accounts, for one. You can't judge a business on a set of accounts. You can look at what's going on behind the scenes, but you can't judge it on that at all. I think you need to have an understanding that the business model and everything that's going on with the franchisor, they're going to help you, for one. But the ones that grow the businesses are the ones that are strategic thinkers and not analytical thinkers. If you're an analytical thinker and you're just looking at the accounts and you're just ticking spreadsheets and making sure you're doing the numbers, you're going to do it by cost saving, you do everything like that. When you're being strategic about things and you're making changes and you're showing and you're being proactive, that's how you're going to move the business forward. So if you're wanting to grow the business, a big thing I will say is you've got to have the belief in yourself that you can actually grow it. So if you do buy that business that's cheaper, yes, you are going to earn less money for a little bit, but with that belief and that help and everything you've got around you, you will soon get up to where you need to be.
Cool. Excellent. So I wonder what the ideal buyer looks like to you. You know, if you're supporting various brands to resell franchise licenses, what's the ideal person that you're looking for? Or do they have some ideal traits that you'd look out for?
Ideal traits that we're looking for. Look, the majority of businesses that we sell are management businesses. So the kind of traits we're looking for are transferable skills. So people that have got management experience, that have got organization experience, problem solving, business growth, new client acquisition, all that kind of stuff. That's the kind of thing that that as a franchise, as us franchise resellers, they're the kind of people that are predominantly on our database. Now, we have businesses on that are from £30,000 up to 1.3, 1.4 million. So to give you an exact is not going to be is not there, but it's a case of different people buy different businesses, but the skill set for what franchisors are looking at the levels that we're selling at that kind of level is slightly different. Like, for instance, if you've got a man in a van business, then they're going to want somebody from day one who's prepared to go out, work in that van, go and do the work, job and everything else. When you've got four vans on the road, that franchisee is looking for a different person. They're looking for somebody who can manage them 4 vans, that are managing the area. So it's a different criteria of clientele.
Yeah, sure. And I guess that could be somebody who already owns another business as well, right? And they're looking to add another service into a same sort of client base or something like that. It's something I'm seeing more and more often is that actually a lot of these franchise brands are owned by somebody who's not necessarily operating within the business, but they set up their management team and run them from there. So yeah,
Yeah,
it,
I think that's an interesting point, because I think with franchising being still, franchise resales especially being very, very not, it's not been around loads. It's not been around forever. It's definitely something that's coming more to the market, and the more the franchise network in the UK grows, then that's what's going to happen. You remember, we've still only got 1,000 franchisors in the UK. We only have 48,000 franchisees in the UK. Sounds a lot. There are 50,000 SMEs in Nottinghamshire. You know, that's the kind of difference you're looking at. So how many SMEs are in UK? You know, there's going to be a hell of a lot more. So it shows how small franchising actually is. And the bigger that gets, the more brands that we get on and everything else like that, that's only going to grow. Now, predominantly and still proven to the day, the franchisees that work in the business on the coalface will make the business work normally better. Okay. That's what the ideal scenario is. However, when you're getting up to businesses that are 1 million, 1.5 million, 2 million, they're not going to be operated normally by a person that's wanting day-to-day involvement. They're wanting to be involved in that kind of way. So franchisors are now starting to understand that they've got to change their kind of criteria for these bigger businesses, because it's a different clientele that's coming in at that top level. That's where you're going to get your people that have got the teams and everything in place, and they're looking at managing this as an operation, and not just a as they call it, a local franchise. It's a completely different ballgame. More franchisors are getting on board with that, but still there's an awful lot of franchisors out there that are still wanting to keep with the owner operator model, which is fine. It's absolutely their prerogative, isn't it, to do that. It's just harder to find people at that kind of level that are going to want that kind of involvement.
Yeah, and I guess that's where you and your team can come in support them, really, isn't it? So
Exactly that. Yeah.
cool. So um yeah, my first of the kind of standard questions I ask everyone then is I'd love to find out if you've got any funny, strange, or weird stories that you're happy to share with us from your career.
I'll tell you what, I was thinking that minute ago when you asked me this, and I was like, I ain't really got anything. But then there's one that sticks in my mind. Uh, I was at a franchise event a few years ago now. Well, in fact, probably 5 or 6 years ago. And I used to drive to the train station, jump on the train, come down to London, get back on the train, and then drive back from the station. And we drove to Grantham Station, me and Julie, and we went down to London, and then there was an after drinks party over the road at the pub, and I was there, and I was sinking a few drinks, and then all of a sudden I thought, my car's at the station. And I'd probably had far too many. Now, luckily, Suki Dehal, who's the head of franchising at Lloyds Bank, he's a good mate, and he said, I'm actually going up to Lincolnshire. Shall I give you a lift? There's something different, something else. No, I thought my car was in Stevenage, and it wasn't. It was in Grantham.
Right.
And he said, oh, I'll take your lift. And I was like, and then in the end, he had to drive me all the way to Grantham. And then we got to Grantham. That was it. No, I arranged to go up to Grantham because he was going to take me home. And then I realised I'd had too much to drink. So on the way, I was like, mate, I've had far too much to drink. I can't drive. You're going to have to take me home. And he took me all the way home.
Bless him.
So
Oh
yeah,
dear.
that was, I don't think he'll ever forget that.
No, I think you're probably going to owe him one for that for a while as well.
Yeah, he's a top boy though, so that's fine.
Fantastic. So my next question is, are there any proud or inspiring moments you've had in your career, or what's been the most proud or inspiring moment?
Most proud and inspiring moment. I think the most proud moment of my career was when I took the reins of franchise resales and was the main person to be looking after it and running it. When me and Judy bought the business in 2015 off Derek, that was a proper proud moment. Like, it was a fantastic brand. It was everything. Like, people knew who I was. It was great. And to just keep growing that and take that to the next level is an opportunity that I can't forget.
Yeah, and I guess you've had quite a big impact in a lot of people's lives as well. Selling on their businesses so they can retire or do the next thing that they want to. That's
Yeah, I not really ever thought of it from my point of view, but yeah, I've helped. I suppose I've helped many people, making sure that they get what they need and get out of the business, and for whatever reason. And I always like to think that I'm somebody that they can just approach and have a chat about, and I'm very straightforward with stuff as well. If I don't feel like something's right, then I will explain why, in my opinion. And hopefully we're not just I'm not trying to plug, but we're not just a standard like broker. We will get involved with everything all the way through. So I was involved with putting together some making sure some solicitors were the right solicitors on a deal the other day, and making sure that the funding's correct, and helping with the business plan and getting people through the business planning process with the people that we use and all that kind of stuff. So we get involved with everything. So I suppose from that point of view, I've never really thought about it, but I suppose a testimonial when they say thanks ever so much, that was what we wouldn't have gone through without your help, is a nice thing to say.
Yeah, it ties back into the estate agency piece you were talking about earlier. That you are having quite a big impact on people's lives. I mean, buying a business is probably the second biggest, or buying a franchise license is probably the second or third biggest thing someone will ever do in their life. So helping them to buy or sell a business, that's quite a big moment in people's lives, and probably a lot of emotions attached to it. So taking those stresses off their hands, you're probably doing more good than you realize, mate. So
yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. To be fair, knowing how stressful they can be, resales, and they really can be. I think I'm in a perfect position, and I explain this to buyers and sellers and franchisors, that I can take the emotion out of it. I'm not emotionally attached to any of it, so I'm always making sure that I get the best result for everybody.
Yeah, cool. And then my final question is for just anybody in general who's maybe looking to buy a franchise license. What one piece of advice would you give to them?
My biggest piece of advice is make sure you do your due diligence. Make sure you look into everything that you possibly feel like you need to. If there's any niggles in you, then explore them. Making sure that you understand who the franchisor is, making sure who you understand who they are as a person, because you're not just tying yourself into the franchise, you're tying yourself into a connection with people. And if you don't get on with them people, then it's very hard to work with somebody who is telling you or advising you to do something, but you don't actually like them as a person, kind of thing. So you actually don't take, even though they're right, even though they're telling you exactly what you know is correct, you won't take that advice on board, because actually you don't feel like they know what they're talking about from an emotional point of view, rather than actually they do know what they're talking about, and you sometimes just have to bite your lip.
Yeah, that's good advice. But do you think there's a time period somebody should go through to say, I need 2 months to go through full due diligence, or is it, is there a time limit to that, really?
No, absolutely not. There is no limit whatsoever. And I would say that looking at things like who your competitors are, making sure you understand exactly who, do a full competitor analysis, making sure you're understanding who you're going to be coming up against, what they do good, what they do bad, why you're going to be different, why is your franchisor different, then go and see the other franchisors that do the same thing as well, making sure you understand exactly why that is, because you actually might decide that actually that franchise is better than that one, but you haven't explored it because you didn't realize it was even around.
Yeah.
And so on. So it's all about doing due diligence.
Perfect. Well, look, I think we can leave it there with some excellent advice from you, Michael. Thank you so much for your time today, and
No worries.
hopefully you've
Been a
enjoyed
pleasure.
it.
Yeah, no, it's been really good, really
Excellent,
good.
and I'll catch up with you soon. Cheers.
Yeah, catch you soon, mate. Thanks very much.